over the last 4 years.
The Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Mr. Speaker, meanwhile, primary industries in this country lose billions of dollars every year for a massively inflated dollar, which my colleague who just sat to his seat maintains for their mates in the finance industry in downtown Queen Street. But, Mr. Speaker, this is a story of how an Australian bank, some Ned Kellys across the ditch and some local business people robbed a small New Zealand town of its livelihood. It's about how a gang of corporate thugs screwed dozens of people out of their jobs. It's about how the Westpac Bank involved itself in shafting an iconic New Zealand company, namely Yarrow's the Bakers in Manaia, Taranaki, heartland New Zealand, which my colleague didn't refer to. We're talking about the receivership of Yarrow's in May last year. The circumstances which the company went into receivership were unusual. At the time, Yarrow's had a valuation of $100 million. The sole shareholder, Paul Yarrow, had just secured a new international joint venture worth $200 million over 10 years. So what happened? A group of individuals set out to take control of this joint venture and force Mr. Yarrow out. It was nothing short of a corporate assassination. First, the Australian conspirators deliberately overcharged Yarrow's in rent to the sum of $2 million in false leases. These were then charged to the Australian company operation of Yarrow's. They then demanded a payment of $7 million Australian from Mr. Yarrow, and the price, if he did not agree to their demands, was receivership. Here are some of the names of the New Zealand and Australian individuals involved: Warren Duncan, Trevor Perry, Colin Pettigrew, Michael Finnegan, all connected to Yarrow's. Brian Mayo Smith from the receivers, BDO, and Nick Hale from Westpac the bank. These people conspired to bring down Yarrow's from within. Where is the evidence? Well, some of that will emerge in a court case starting in New South Wales Supreme Court tomorrow, and some will come from a tape recording of businessmen conspiring to cheat an owner. Now, the House is very well aware of what happens when a tape recorder keeps running and no one notices it. Not an English dog breakfast tape, but this is a Breadgate tape. The tape recording reveals the depth of this plot and what these people conspired to do. For example, we have Michael Finnegan, former trusted advisor to Paul Yarrow, saying, quotes, "let's threaten receivership," end of quotes. Then we have Trevor Perry, who described himself as, quotes, "an angel investor," end of quotes, saying to the Westpac representative, Nick Hale, quotes, "I never thought I'd be happy to see a demand put on a company by a bank," end of quotes. All on tape. I have just one question for Mr. Hale and Westpac, and it's this: why? The reason is they wanted control of the planned joint venture bakery operations from the Japanese company Sumitomo. And mostly they wanted Paul Yarrow out so they could transfer assets from his family company in Manaia to pay for their shares at the discount price in Australia. When Paul Yarrow wouldn't agree, they threatened to ruin him, and so it transpired. Westpac followed through on the director's threat and called in the receivers. Prior to this conspiracy, Westpac was on the verge of getting 90% of its money within weeks. What are the connections between company directors Warren Duncan, Trevor Perry, Colin Pettigrew, Westpac officers John Chapman and Nick Hale, and Brian Mayo Smith of BDO? We understand the Serious Fraud Office in New Zealand is about to step in, and tomorrow the New South Wales Supreme Court in Sydney, these New Zealand and Australian directors will be involved in a legal war over the ownership of the company in which the Australian Securities Investment Commission is involved. The case shows what happens when unscrupulous overseas-owned banks and corporate high-flyers get their hands on New Zealand companies, but this is a rural company in Manaia, in Taranaki, a massive subscriber to that community, including the local rugby team and all other benefits that they have poured in millions of dollars over the years, provided all the employment to all these local people in Manaia over the years so that a young person there knew always that they'd have a job locally. It is an international best-selling company, providing its product all over Asia and throughout the Pacific, and also providing the core product for Subway in their contracts here and around other parts of the world. But here's enough of it. When it all happened, the Westpac Bank and these businessmen had no regards to what was being done to local people. And the government does nothing about this sort of behaviour.
Jackie Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Meanwhile, back in the 21st